Yo, what's up, Serpa Squad? Tanner here, and I'm back with another rendition of the biOrb Air. To recap, Oaze sent this back to me in July of 2019. Yes, I received the product for free, but it does not include a paid promotion or anything like that. I first set it up to be the Orchid Forest Terrarium. That one looked pretty cool and had a dense jungle feel to it. However, due to various circumstances, it dried out. A few months later, I redid the setup to include a pond. That one also looked pretty neat, and I've had it like that since. I think it's time for a change though. With a clean slate, it's time to get to work. This time around, I want to make something that resembles a stream. For that, I have a few items, including a submersible pump, which was used in the previous build, and a small plexiglass cube. This will be used to make a reservoir of water for the pump. However, it's too big for what I have planned. I marked for a new height to better suit the build. 3 of the sides are the same, and the area closest to the stream is slightly lower. I cut it down on a table saw. Another component that will play a role in the reservoir is Metalamat. This will fill in some of the void space and protect the pump from debris while leaving a good amount of space for water. I cut out a piece that fits into the plexiglass cube. I also marked for the pump and cut out a section. Now all the pieces nest perfectly together. To complete the stream portion of the setup, I also have some scrap PVC pond liner and seam tape. First, I cut out a few strips of seam tape. I used these to attach the liner to the plexiglass. I started with the inside and repeated the process on the outside. Once everything was attached together, I trimmed off some excess pond liner. It doesn't look like much, but this will create an awesome stream-like effect. This was the first thing I added to the orb. I did this to maximize space and have the plexiglass cube flush with the bottom of the setup. I'll also be using the same substrate blend from last time, which is my standard mix for terrariums. I placed it all around the plexiglass. In doing so, I started with a flat layer to conceal the reservoir. Then I built up the land in the back of the setup. This will create a good sense of depth and encourage the flow of water. Once I built up the initial layer, I worked in the liner. I quickly realized it was too long and cut it down to a more manageable size. I tried to find a good configuration, but things still weren't looking right. I mixed up more substrate and built up the landscape even more. This allowed me to better situate the liner. After that, I put the Metalamat and pump down in the plexiglass reservoir. I didn't do this initially in case I got substrate in the cube. The pump's output tube was directed up the side of the enclosure and back around at the top of the liner. I used a few stones to keep it in place for a test run. From there I could conceal the waterfall. For that I'm using sandstone river rocks and sandstone pea pebbles. Both are perfect for the setup because they absorb water, which in turn will promote moss growth. I started by placing a few rocks throughout the stream to get an idea of how this will look. However, the water won't flow properly unless they use something like expanding foam to fill in the cracks. I shut off the waterfall and removed the rocks. A thin layer of foam was applied on top of the liner. I pressed rocks into the foam to resemble the look I had previously. In placing the stones, I'm not trying to hide the foam. I'm simply trying to build a structure that will promote the flow of water. We'll cover the foam later on with moss. Anyway, I repeated the foaming process up the entire stream. I allowed the foam to cure for about 10 minutes. I went back and pressed the foam back into the cracks so it won't continue to expand. Once that was addressed, I let it cure for about 8 hours. The reservoir was filled and the pump was tested once more. At first I had to keep refilling it because the rocks absorbed all the water. Once I got that addressed, it flowed perfectly. Some pea pebbles were added to the stream for better variation in stone size. From there I went on to conceal the liner and other stream components. I built up the land even more and buried the pump's output tube. As you would imagine, I can't set something like this up with only stones. For my other hardscape elements, I have a large spiderwood stump and small spiderwood branches for details. I worked the stump into the scape so the roots span over the stream. More rocks were added into the scape as well. Then I addressed the reservoir. I started with the edges by placing a few stones to hold back the liner. I covered the rest with pebbles to transition into the front of the scape. Now we'll bring the scape to life with plants including bird's foot fern, rough maidenhair fern, ripple peperomia, sword fern, bichette grass, white polka dot plant, creeping inch plant, oakleaf creeping fig, Anubias nana petite, marimo moss ball, crescent cup liverwort, tangled thread moss, and badge moss. I started by planting the bird's foot fern near the spiderwood stump. The maidenhair fern was planted near the stump as well. I put the peperomia near the front of the design for a pop of color. After that I added a few sword ferns. I went with a lot of ferns on this one because I think they really go well with the stream vibe. After that I added the bichette grass and polka dot plant as accent elements. Next I used the inch plant to soften the edge of the stream. I planted the moss in a similar way. They'll soften the edges and hide all of the unsightly foam. In fact, I ended up covering the entire bottom of the terrarium with moss. I broke up a marimo moss ball and used it to hide the foam within the waterfall. I used this instead of moss because it helps promote the flow of water better than moss would have. I went on to add the accent elements including the liverwort, spiderwood twigs, Anubias, and oakleaf creeping fig. Now that it's all planted, I can add the finishing touches. First of course are the springtails. Like usual, these will help deal with any potential mold outbreaks. I also put the top back on the orb and gave it a proper spray down with distilled water. There you have it, the third rendition of the biOrb. This time it features a stream. Of the three, I think this one is probably my favorite. It's filled with a lot of substrate, but I think that helps to make a really dramatic and eye-catching design. I also think the prominent stream is more interesting than the pond was. I really like the look of a moss-covered setup in contrast with ferns. In my opinion, it really makes for a nice looking terrarium. The idea was to frame the stream with all of the plants, which I think was achieved quite well. I know I keep redoing this one, but I like to think of it as my sandbox. I keep it going until I come up with a new idea I want to explore. Chances are I'll do something else with it in the future. For me, that's the fun of it. Anyway, I really like how this one turned out. I want to know what you think though. Let me know which version of the biOrb you like the best and what you think of version 3.0. That's all I have for you in this one. As always, I hope you all enjoyed the project and learned something new. Until next time, Serpa Squad, take care and peace.